In July of 1900, on the crowded streets of Shanghai, and in front of Tang Saichang's Guohui Parliament, Zhang Binglin rejected the Qing Gangshu emperor, and in a fiery display of public defiance, cut off his queue. He followed many other revolutionaries in this act, including the likes of Sun Yat-sen and Zhou Rong, and became one of the most well-known symbols of Han Chinese resistance to the Qing assimilation. The project to bring Manchu cultural identity upon the Han Chinese began in 1622, with Nurhaji's march into and occupation of the Liaodong Peninsula, the first time we see an official edict that all Han Chinese men must adopt the Manchu queue. Not surprisingly, a plethora of Ming Chinese officials refused, looking upon the braid as a symbol of Qing submission. As an example to the people, they were publicly executed, sending the rest of the Han populace in Liaodong scurrying to adopt their new hairstyle. And so, when Dorgan drove out Li Zicheng and instated the Qing as the ruling empire in China, he sought to extend the Manchu identity to the rest of his domain. In early June of 1644, Dorgan proclaimed that all former Ming officials and soldiers were to adopt the Manchu queue as a sign of loyalty to the new Qing state. And not soon after, this edict was extended to the rest of the Han populace. The Han Chinese met this forced adoption of the Manchu queue with much resistance. Many banded together with former Ming officials and soldiers and formed pockets of military revolt, perhaps the most famous being Shi Kefa and his defiant last stand during the Yangzhou massacre in 1645. What the queue symbolized for the Han was not just a superficial change in outer appearance. Rather, it was an encapsulation of the very idea of Manchuness, a proxy of Qing culture, much like foot binding was to the Han. Fittingly, a popular saying that circulated among Han people during this time was, "Off with your hair," or "off with your head," showing the harsh line that the Qing held in uploading the Manchu queue order. In a sense, then, the queue's true purpose was both political and cultural. Yes, it sought to assimilate the Han into the Manchu sphere, but more than anything, it was a tool to extract loyalty via identity to the Qing state. Thus, when Zhang Binglin cut off his queue in 1900, it too had both a political and cultural significance. Cultural in that it represented a rejection of the Manchu identity, and a return to the way Han people believed they should be identified, as the rightful cultural group of China. Politically, it was a perfect example of the growing unrest and simmering revolution that ultimately erupted in 1911 and led to the demise of the Qing dynasty. Thus, to the Han Chinese, the physical act of cutting the queue was symbolically equivalent to the metaphorical act of severing ties with the Manchus. To cut off the Manchu identity was to regain the true image of Chineseness.